Welcome back. You are listening to Three Makes Baby with me, your host, Jana Rupnow, the author of Three Makes Baby and a fertility counselor specializing in alternate family building. I am back with an update with two previous guests that have been on the show. If you've been listening for a while, then you know I interview parents that are struggling with infertility and donor-conceived adults talking about their experience being donor conceived. So after a short break in February, I'm going to wrap up this season with an update from two of our previous guests. One, a donor conceived individual from the UK looking for her donor, and two, a known donor in the US and her donation journey. And finally, I am excited to share with you that I will be continuing on with the podcast in a slightly different format. I'm going to be offering parent education for those of you that have a child in a different way through adoption, donor conception, through surrogacy, or gestational carrier. And I will also be getting into a little bit more of infertility related information and how certain personalities and different personality types cope with infertility. So be sure to subscribe to the podcast and watch on my social media platforms for announcements about the new content. That is going to be at Jana Rupnow LPC. You're listening to Three Makes Baby, a podcast about fertility, family, and genetics. I'm Jana Rupnow, a fertility counselor and author of Three Makes Baby. Welcome to the show. Nikita, welcome back to the podcast. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Are you?
I'm so good. It's so good to talk to you. You know, my podcast started with you. It was episode number 1.
Yeah, it's great to be back to speaking with you.
Yeah, I'm going to take a break and your episode will be the last. So you're the alpha and the omega. And it's going to be like this full circle. And I'm just a huge fan of a full circle kind of thing. So I was thinking about you the other night as I'm preparing for this and remembering our interview and how many unknowns that you had at the time, not knowing anything. You know, you were doing your dissertation or a project, I think, in university and trying to search for your biological father. And for anybody who hasn't listened to that very first episode, go back and listen to that. And this will be the part 2 or the follow-up to that. And I'm anxious too, because I haven't heard this. So listeners, you get to hear this as I get to hear this for the first time. So I can't wait, fill us in on what's happened since that episode in your life.
Yeah. So I wrote my dissertation. It was entitled Finding My Donor in 30 Days. Can Art Practices and Creative Thinking Assist an Individual in Finding Their Biological Family? And it was a 3,000 word dissertation along with practical artwork. And I put it all together in a little book and put the work out on social media, some of it. And I had quite a good response. It was great to make work about something so personal. And my people, fellow students at university, really were interested in finding more out about it because they weren't really educated on it at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure that it helped raise awareness about donor conception. And, I know I checked in with you several times over this past year, and I know for a while there was just no new information at all turning up. But remind us what you did to find your donor.
Yeah, so I did a few things as part of my uni project. I went out and gave cards out to the public, sending them to a social media page that was about my donor in the hope that somebody would go onto it and maybe know the donor himself. But unfortunately, I didn't manage to find him after the 30 days, but it was still really good to experiment with it and see where it led. Yeah.
And what did you, even though you weren't able to find him in 30 days, were you able to find anything, even just a clue in those 30 days?
It took a bit more than that. I didn't really find out anything new. It was just more so hearing from the public about their views on it, and they were quite interested to see what I was doing and to learn about my experiences so far.
I'm sorry you weren't able to find anything. I was so hopeful. Did you have any false leads from the public?
So I had a girl contact me on Facebook through the social media page I created, called Beatrice, and she sent me a message because she'd seen the social media post I'd put out, and she thought that she'd found a sibling for me, but it wasn't actually a sibling. It was just my post that I'd made from the social media page I'd created, and because my information matched obviously mine, she thought it was a sibling, but it was just me, like the post I'd made myself.
Oh,
um,
wow.
so I got talking to her. She's donor conceived as well, so we were just sharing our experiences, and I'd realised that I'd been speaking to another girl called Jazz who had the same donor information as she had. So I'd been speaking to Jazz for one of my uni projects, and I remembered the thing she told me about her donor, and this girl that contacted me, Beatrice, she had the same donor information as Jazz. So I said, I've been speaking to a girl from my uni project who's got basically the same donor info as you. I think it might be one of your siblings. So I put them in touch, and it was actually that they were half siblings. So I helped them find
Oh,
one another.
wow.
Yeah. So
That's
it was nice to have that come from it.
that is unbelievable. So that happened back in May and you got to connect them, but for you still no information at all?
I was speaking to Jazz, who was one of the girls I connected, and she was obviously really thankful. So she was offering to help me. She's got Ancestry subscriptions, so she was saying if you want me to check any records or anything, she'd happily do that. So I went onto Ancestry, just got together a few things I'd like to check for me. And then I thought, oh, I'll check my 23andMe account as well, because I do check them both on a regular basis. Just not expecting anything. And then when I went on my 23andMe account, I had a half sibling match.
You
So that was
did?
just a huge shock. Yeah.
Wow.
That was the
And
first time in, I think I've been on there about 3 or 4 years.
wow.
Yeah.
And what did you do with that information?
So I'd got a message from her. She'd sent it 3 days before, so she'd actually got her results back 3 days before, but I hadn't seen it. And she'd sent me a message just saying that she saw that we were half siblings, so she'd like to introduce herself. And I
Wow.
wasn't sure if she knew she was donor conceived or not, so I was a bit hesitant how to respond to it. But it turned out she did know, so
Okay.
that was quite lucky.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now that gave you another piece of information, which was, I know we were wondering at the time, did he donate just one time or did he donate multiple times? So now you know he donated a couple times, at least a few times.
Yeah, and then it worked out really great as well. She told me that we've got a half brother as well, because she was born into a same-sex family. One of their moms had her and the other mom had the boy, using the same donor. So even though I'd only DNA matched with her, I've actually got a half
Oh,
brother as
wow.
well that she's grown up with.
That's so
So we've all
cool.
got the same donor. Yeah.
Now, did they get the same donor information, profile information about you? I know because your donor was, oh, you thought maybe he was older and you wondered if it was a mistake, like a typo, or if it was accurate. Did they get the same age on your donor?
So our information was slightly different, but her information didn't have a year of birth, whereas mine did. So mine said that he was born in 1949, which makes him just over 70. But she didn't know the age at all, so that was something new to tell her.
Yeah.
And there was a few things she had that I didn't have. So she had his blood group and nationality, which was Spanish. But I've never known his nationality at all. I didn't have that on my documents, so that was something new and
Yeah.
quite a shock to discover, really.
Really? Because you were thinking something else, right?
Yeah, so I was thinking maybe Cuban, because a lot of my
Yeah.
DNA markers are Cuban. But we're still a bit uncertain about that. We think maybe the
Yeah.
donor had like one Spanish parent and one Cuban parent or something. We're not too sure.
Yeah, that could be.
Yeah.
And information, the information that you received, we've talked about that. We're not sure if it was accurate or, but it's kind of good that you can put these pieces of the puzzle together. You're starting to put it together.
Yeah, we had a lot of the same information. So like his interests and what he'd wrote about himself were exactly the same. So we know for
Good.
definite now that's all
Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
How does that make you feel? I mean, in general.
Yeah, it's nice to know for definite, because I suppose there's always a worry whether they've like lied about their interests or job or anything, and it's nice to have somebody else be able to confirm that's probably the case. So you know a bit more about them, that it's more than likely correct information.
Yeah. And it's important for those that are listening to know that you might be wondering why that matters. But it matters because no matter, some people do it more than others, but we all have, we form ideas, thoughts in our mind with it, the information we're given. And if we're forming a concept around a person that's inaccurate, it makes you feel unsettled. It makes you feel like, am I dreaming? Is this real? There's this, we call it the fantasy parent. Because it's very unsettling to not know what's real and what's made up. And when you get that more factual information, that just makes you feel, for lack of a better word, like more grounded with that.
Yeah.
So that's why I encourage parents to get as much information as they can when they're choosing a donor or going through donation conception. Just get as much information as you possibly can to give to your child.
Yeah, it's so good to have something just to form sort of a visual image of what it might be like. So I think if I had no information, it would be a real shame, because I just wouldn't know like where my certain interests come from or physical appearance. It's nice to be able to put that to something.
It's concrete. I don't know if you saw my recent post on Instagram about the fantasy parent, but it's very common for kids to engage in magical thinking when, imagination. And as we grow, we learn the difference between reality and non-reality. And so as a child is going through these stages, especially in the magical thinking stage, if you know you're donor conceived or adopted, you're going to form an idea of a parent or of a genetic mother, genetic father, donor. You're going to form that concept. And so then as you age, you really want it to become more concrete.
Yeah.
And as you move out of magical thinking and into more, realistic, or even fantasies still are very much part of adult life, but less so.
Yeah, there was one thing that was different on our paperwork that we're still a bit unsure of, was his eye colour. So on my information it says that his eyes were hazel, but on her information it says blue. And it's quite interesting because she's got really bright blue eyes, but her biological mom has got brown, and our half brother has got brown. So we're not sure like if that's from the donor or not, because mine obviously says different. So there's been an error somewhere, whoever's recorded that information.
So it could be, either way, you never know. You never know if it's an error, or if it was an error or if it was a technique to try to hide information even deeper and confuse information. I don't want to be the suspicious type, but you never know. I've seen some things. I'm beyond excited to hear this. I just think I'm so happy for you, because you get something, and it's a start, and I hope you can continue to get more. Because I bet you there's more out there. What do you think, what could we say or share on this program that would help maybe anybody that's listening out there that could have some information for you? We could share about the donor's traits and the time he was born, and see if we can tell us about your donor, at the least the information you were given.
So he was born in 1949. His nationality was Spanish. Had dark brown hair, medium skin tone, either hazel or blue eyes. His job was an electronic engineer. He was interested in science and sports, mainly computer science. And his statement said that he was good looking, photogenic, enjoyed sports, was always busy and always happy. And I do know, obviously, I was conceived at the British Pregnancy Advisory Service on Charlotte Street in London, and so was my half sister. But our half brother was conceived at the London Women's Clinic. So we found out that when our clinic closed, the one on Charlotte Street, the donors started donating to the London Women's Clinic instead. So that's more than likely where my other half siblings would have been conceived.
Is it possible that there was a physician at the time or a medical student that was donating?
I'm not sure. He would have been a lot older when he donated, probably about late 40s.
I've met people that were conceived with their mom's doctor and didn't know it.
All right. No, not as far as I know. We haven't found out anything that leads to that. Just that he would have been a lot older when he donated. Yeah. And one thing that my half sister did mention was a few things her parents remember the nurses telling her about the donor, and said that he was always like really happy and friendly, and apparently had a really big family, and just wanted to help couples conceive and to extend his family and give them something that, like, he's obviously a family man, so something that he had. So it seems like if he did say that to the nurses, that it was done for good reason.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That helps.
So that was really nice to know. Yeah.
Absolutely. And but none of his relatives have showed up on your 23andMe?
No, the highest one I have is a third cousin, so it's quite tricky to be able to track it back. I've made a lot of family trees, which is quite time consuming, but I haven't really got anywhere yet.
Yeah. Well, it just seems as DNA testing becomes more popular and more common that somebody will pop up and that maybe you'll get some answers down the line.
Yeah, I mean, I never expected to get a donor conceived sibling to DNA test on the site, so I think anything's possible, really. It could come up in a few years, you never know.
Yeah. Do you share traits with your half siblings?
Kind of, yeah. I can definitely see a physical resemblance with them both. Obviously, I've always thought I look a lot like the donor because I don't resemble my mum at all, or anybody in my family. So it was really nice to see so much physical resemblance in these two siblings. So we have like similar eye shapes, face shape. We've all got quite thick lips and like tiny noses. And we're all like, yeah, we've all got similar physical traits.
Wow, that's so cool. I'd love to see a picture. You can send it privately to me if she doesn't mind.
Yeah.
So,
no.
Oh, that's so awesome.
I've showed quite a few people and they've all said they can see a resemblance.
Oh,
so that was really nice. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, that is so good. Well, I'm so happy to hear from you. Is there anything else that you want to share?
I'd say maybe about my artwork, because I was going to share that. Yeah, I've got a YouTube channel which is called Nikita True Art. I've got 2 of my videos I made for a project on there, and then my Instagram is also Nikita True Art, which I'll be putting up all the pieces I made about donor conception. I'll be posting those.
Oh, I love it. I know you were sharing about how your art has really helped you to process the emotions around being donor conceived. And I think that's so powerful. You know, we try to explain it in posts. And to me, that's the hardest way to deal with donor conception is it can be misconstrued and misunderstood. Podcast is as I do podcasts to try to avoid some of those misunderstandings. And then, but art is everything, because it's really, you take your feelings and emotions and then it's up to the person to see the things that you've put there. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful way to communicate.
One of the things I noticed when I was doing my artist research was that there's not really any artists that I've come across that deal with donor conception. So it's something that I don't think is a topic that's really out there in the arts. So it'd be nice to get that across.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Well, it was fantastic. Well, it was so great having you back. And yeah, we will end this podcast with your really amazing story, and know that this is not the end, that for you, that this is just the beginning of more to come.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. If you would like to follow for more content, you can go to my Instagram and Facebook account at Jana Rupnow LPC, or follow 3 Makes Baby on Instagram. You can get a copy of my book and the companion workbook to 3 Makes Baby on Amazon. If you like this podcast, be sure to like and subscribe. Have a great day.